Guess who's back in the house? I hope that you guys are having a wonderful day. It is Pose Tuesday, and we are at the season finale of this season, which is season 2 of Pose, and I am so sad. We need to petition FX to create more episodes for season 3 of Pose because 10 episodes is not enough. I feel like we just started with episode 1. So, episode 10 is titled In My Heels, and it was written by all of the creators Ryan Murphy, Stephen Canals, and Brad Fulchuk. And it was, I believe, directed by Janet Mock. And so, from episode 1, where we arrived at Hart Island, where um, people who had died of AIDS were buried in unmarked coffins, to season 10, where we have the trans characters who have taken a front seat and they're able to be seen as trans in living their authentic lives. I think we've reached a full circle moment. And it's really beautiful how um, season 2 has been very different from season 1. I feel like season 2 has given us um, complete character development within all of the characters, and we have seen so much growth, specifically in Blanca. And really all of them. All of them are kind of like fully realized characters where we see them in one place at the beginning of the episode, and we see them in a completely different um, way by today's episode. With Blanca, at the beginning of the season, she is the the rock of her house, and she has to be strong for everyone else. She has to be positive for everyone else. And by season or episode 10, she is completely broken. All of her children are gone from the house. She has she's no longer speaking to Pray Tell, and her health is in decline, and so she's at this point where she has given up. And I really appreciate seeing all of the challenges that the characters have been faced with and where they are by the end of the episode. So we start off the episode with Blanca. Because her salon has burned down, she is. Oh, wait, let me turn this off. I forgot that I had my fan on. Um, So we start the episode off with Blanca. She has transformed her living room into her nail salon because Federica has burned down the nail salon. And so the client leaves, and Blanca looks up, and Pray Tell is in her living room. And so they hug each other. Um, they realize that it's been 8 months since they've talked, since they had the argument about Pretel dating Ricky. And so they catch up, and in the midst of them catching up, Blanca has to be hospitalized. And so she tells Pretel to take out her will from her purse, and Pretel reads her will as is, and it is really important for couples who are in the LGBT community to actually have a will, if even though it's kind of like morbid to talk about, if anything unfortunate happens to one of the couples, that there is a legal document that states what happens to the person's estate and their belongings. And so there are so many horror stories where there's either a lesbian couple or a gay couple or a couple who is trans and cisgendered. The partner dies and the family erases them from the estate because there is no will. So, people, if you're in a relationship, please create a will with your partner. Therefore, you are taken care of. And so, Blanca says something that I actually really loved. Um, like, she's at this point where her health is in decline, and she's saying that, death will be easier. And she says, my whole life has been a fight. I need a chance to know peace. And unfortunately, a lot of trans women of color just grow up believing that only sex work is an option for them. Um, if you are trans and of color, um, there is a likelihood that you won't live past the age of 30, that you will have difficulty getting new forms of identification in order to get a job that will hire you. And so I know I say this every episode, but I really love that Pose is opening up these conversations about what it means to be trans, and then shedding a light on what it meant to be trans in the 80s and the 90s and of color. And so I really appreciate Pratel's response. You shouldn't have to die to know what peace feels like. And so um, I am so grateful to be in a time where trans people of color have so many more options than our queer ancestors had in the past, um, because of social media. Um, Really, anyone who works hard can make a living off of social media, and I really love that. And not only social media, but the entertainment industry is really bracing trans and non-binary um, people, and so that is so important. And of course, Pose has been renewed for season 3, and I cannot wait for season 3. I hope MJ Rodriguez, who plays Blanca, that she actually receives an Emmy nomination because she um, really, I could tell she was taking acting classes from season 1 to season 2, but she really shined this season, and I hope she's recognized next year during the Emmy nomination period. And so Pray Tell basically wants Blanca to feel taken care of. So he calls everyone and tells them that Blanca's in the hospital. And so everyone shows up. Her mother, Elektra, Lulu, Angel, and little Poppy show up to support Angel. And they actually have like this wonderful conversation about the ballroom scene. And so Pray Tell says that he hasn't seen the girls at the at in the ballroom scene, and so they tell him that um, they only have 3 categories, and people really come to the um, ballroom to actually see the girls, and it's unfair because only the judges typically the judges are all male, And because we have seen female judges throughout season two, but there have been a few, but mainly it's male judges. And then the council is made up only of men. And so I never looked at it that way that these trans women have to be judged by the gay gaze. And they say that it's unfair that ballroom should cater to trans women because trans women built ballroom. I never thought of it that way. I'm actually not in the ballroom scene. I first, like in college, I heard of balls, but I never went to a ball while I was in college. Um, but I knew of them, but I didn't gain interest in the ballroom scene until I was reading this blog. Um, I believe it was called Brooklyn Boy Blues, and it was this blogger based out of New York, and he was studying performance art, and he entered the ballroom scene as kind of like a study into performance art, and he um, would basically photograph and interview different people in the ballroom scene. And one person that captured me was Laomi, and Laomi was like my gateway drug into ballroom because she was this amazing performer. Like she could do no wrong. My favorite video of Laomi of all time, just from videos that I've seen, was I don't even this was like posted like 9 years ago or so, and she is on stage and someone has a camera. It looks like they're kind of like behind the curtains of the stage. Um the camera is like there's no lighting, so it's very dark, but you can kind of like see this light shining from the front, and it's the camera angle is facing behind her, or she's in front of the camera, but we see her back. And so she's almost kind of like this silhouette because of the light that's in front of her. And it is one of the cleanest performances that I've seen. She is known for kind of like femme queen dramatic performance. And it is so beautiful. I if I find it, I will link it in the description. But it is one of my favorite performances because she performs very clean. She's dramatic, but she's also um, extremely in touch with the feminine side of ballroom, and so that's what I love. And one of my all-time favorite people in ballroom is Allura. Um, I believe Allura was in the House of Jordan, but Allura um, actually when Laomi was on, I think it's So You Think You Can Dance, or the show that was on MTV that Little Mama was the judge of, when Little Mama and Laomi had that weird interaction. It's when Allura had passed away. But Allura is a performance beast. If you don't know Allura, just Google or on YouTube search Allura Jordan, and you will see all of her videos. Just magical. And so Praytel takes this information to the council that the women of ballroom feel as if um, they um, aren't being heard, and they're not in the position where they should be based off of them building the ballroom scene. And so the council members state that they will basically walk in the category Butch Queen, first time in drags at a ball. And so they think that that will um, get the women of the ballroom to see that they see them and that they recognize them, and they want to better understand their experience in the ballroom scene. And so I was actually like thinking of it, I was like, I don't know if that's gonna solve it. I actually would have preferred that they say, oh, let's have an all femme queen ball. Like that would have been perfect. And actually me, when I used to like heavily watch ballroom videos, and when I was writing my first book, um, I really kind of like would write and then watch ballroom videos because they actually helped me to really write scenes that required movement. And so I really studied ballroom to help with movement because if I could articulate what was happening um, in a battle on in the ballroom scene, it helped me to describe movement on paper. And so I was constantly watching ballroom videos, and my favorite performers were the Femme Queens. So fast forward, um, Angel still in the hospital scene with Pretel, Blanca, and everyone else. Angel tells Pretel, "You're judged enough by the outside world to be judged harshly by our own." And so that really reminded me about kind of like um, trans people in gay spaces, how sometimes we do not support them enough. And so I said it last week, but I'll say it again. Please support trans people, especially trans people of color. In LA, there is a all trans um, promotion team called Party Osbonoff, and they throw underground parties in downtown LA. And I try to support them whenever I can. Um, at this party, if you're trans or non-binary, you get into the parties for free, and with the proceeds, they actually support trans women of color artists and business owners by giving them money. And so, however you can, please support trans people. And so, fast forward, also during this scene, Angel talks about how she isn't getting bookings through the agency. And so she actually barges into um, Ford's office to see why she's not getting booked. And Miss Ford states that she was doing this investigation, and Angel was on a shoot for a pantyhose campaign, and this guy, um, he's some type of assistant on the shoot, and he says that he's been an admirer of hers from afar, and he loved when she walked realness. And Angel, it looks like her heart stops because he's from the ballroom scene, and her fear has always been that she's going to be outed. And so she changes into a different garment, and she's on the first level. On the second level, she could see this guy talking to the creative director, and he says something to the creative director that makes the creative director storm off. And so what he has said, he has basically told the creative director that Angel is trans. The creative director calls Mrs. Ford and tells her that she's been playing a trick on her, and she doesn't appreciate her casting a drag queen. And so this story comes directly from Tracy Africa Norman's life. And so I said this kind of like early on in the season that I thought that they were going to reference Tracy Africa. For those of you who are new to my reviews, I have mentioned Tracy Africa in the past. Tracy Africa was the first transgender supermodel. She was on a Clairol hair color box, and it was called like Auburn DX, something like that. And it was their top selling hair color. And because it was their top selling hair color, Clairol booked her a second time. And so Tracy was a model through, um, I think it was called Grace Del Marco Agency. And this was in the late 70s, early 80s. And she was a highly sought after model that she constantly worked. And so um, at one of her last shoots at the modeling agency, she was on a shoot for Essence magazine. They were doing a holiday themed um, shoot that um, there was a hair assistant who he was always asking Tracy a lot of questions, and it always made her feel uncomfortable. And so this guy basically told then editor Susan Taylor um, that Tracy was trans. And so, according to Tracy, Susan stopped the photo shoot and told the the founder of the agency that Tracy was trans, and it ruined Tracy's career. She wasn't able. She was fired from the agency, and she wasn't able to get steady work. And because of that, she had to go to Europe to work. And so she was able. After that, she was able to work with Balenciaga, and she was able to book kind of like a few other gigs, but her career was never the same. And it's really unfortunate. She is so beautiful. And the cool thing is that she's had this resurgence. Um, a few years ago, she was actually on the cover of Harper's Bazaar India. And I believe she and another woman, they were the first transgender models to be on the cover of any of the Harper's Bazaar covers. So I'm so thankful that she is, and she's older at this point, but she is still able to work as a model. And so Susan Taylor recently came out and said that um, she did not um, basically stop the shoot, and that she was a big supporter of Tracy, and she um, didn't have proof, but she kind of thought that Tracy um, was a unique woman, but she actually loved Tracy for her very um, um, her very kind of like her strong features. I think that's the word that she used. She loved her strong features, and Tracy had larger feet, bigger hands, and just had like a was heavier than kind of like the typical model that Essence hired. But Susan said that she actually loved. Oh, hi Ken. I just saw a chat pop up. Hi Ken. Thanks for watching. Um, and so I don't know if I believe that though. I know of Susan Taylor because like my mother was obsessed with fashion magazines and Essence magazines, and so I would um, read Essence all the time. And Susan is actually huge in the Black community because of her work in the publishing industry. So fast forward, I really appreciated the conversation that Mrs. Ford had with Angel. Mrs. Ford said that the world isn't ready for a model like Angel. And so she still believed in Angel. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Mrs. Ford is the musician Sting's wife in real life. And so I just found that out. But the cool thing is kind of like later on in the episode, we learn that Little Poppy partners with the Ford agency for kind of like he is going to manage women like Angel. And Ford tells him, I will give you a space in my agency. And if you book a gig in 2 weeks, we will have a permanent relationship. So he books Angel a cool gig in Berlin for a German soda company, and so it kind of like does follow Tracy Africa's life story, and so I really love that. And he believes in Angel so much. Um, and later on in the episode, they both propose to each other. So that was a beautiful moment. And so, fast forward, we have another scene with Blanca being in the hospital. And all this time, I did not know Sandra Bernhard's character's name. Her name is Judy. I had no idea that was her name. And so Blanca wants to give up because her health is in decline. And Pray Tell reads a newspaper headline and tells her that Frederica has been investigated by the police and she is now in jail for starting the fire at the business. And I believe that really lifts Blanca's spirit because this woman that basically ruined her business is now sitting in jail. And there's a moment where Frederica is talking to her lawyer, and she tells him that my one regret is that I ruined another woman's dreams. And so it takes Frederica being in jail um, to use the correct pronoun and really respect Blanca for the woman that she is. And so it's a little too late, but it's progress. And fast forward, Elektra is teaching the council and her children how to walk in heels for the Mother's Day ball. And she has this funny line where Pray Tell can't walk um, in these heels, and she tells him that these are the type of heels that I wear when I have food poisoning, and I just was on the floor laughing. And so Pray Tell is upset because Elektra is treating him the way that he treats a lot of the women in the ballroom scenes, especially her. There's one point that he just like threw her out of the ball and he can't take it, so he storms out. So Ricky comes out and tells him that the reason why you don't want to do this is because you're not comfortable showing your feminine side. And Pretel tells him that his biological father used to abuse him because he was gay. And Ricky tells him that it's time for you to embrace all of you. I remember when I first came out, I tried to be extremely butch because I was kind of like made fun of for being gay in high school. And so I only shopped at J. Crew. I only wore kind of like polo shirts because I was really trying to kind of like butch it up. And it was me reuniting with one of my favorite cousins who's also gay, that I really kind of like realized that, you know, it's okay for me to really explore my feminine side with my with the way that I dress, and it's okay to do that. And so, because of that, I am no longer ashamed to really express myself and be comfortable sharing my feminine side with the world. And so I love this conversation that Pose is creating, that uh, gay men and men in the LGBT community, um, it's okay for them to be fluid, to one day wear a business suit and the next day to wear a ball gown. Um, and for any man, no matter what uh, their sexual preference is, that it's okay for them to be in touch with their feminine side. And so I love that. So, Damon comes back from his tour with Malcolm McLaren, and he's so happy to see Blanca. And one of the first things that he tells her is that he has taken the House of Evangelista overseas and created a house there, which is so cool. It'll be cool to know what was the first house um, that opened its doors kind of like abroad. If anybody knows that, please let me know. Um, I'm thinking that it probably was like either the House of Mizrahi or the House of Ebony. Those are the bigger houses in the ballroom scene, so it's probably one of those houses. And Damon has this very intimate moment with Blanca, and he says that um, he tells her that he's heard that she's closed down the House of Evangelista, and that he wants her to reopen it because she will always be a mother. And he tells her that without you, where would I be? And there are so many Damons in the world that need saving. And so the great thing about Pose is that it has really kind of like where Paris is burning left off. It's created this conversation about the meaning of the ballroom scene is to really house people in the community who have been kicked out of their homes. And so homes aren't just about the balls, but they're really about creating a family, um, and they're actual family units that they exist outside of balls. And I believe it was the House of Pendavis where everyone in the house actually has to have an education. That you cannot get into the House of Pendavis without some type of degree. And they really help each other to reach their career goals. So I thought that was really cool. And so fast forward to the Mother's Day ball. Um, Elektra wins Mother of the Year. She deserves it. And I love her character arc, she really early on in the season reverts to the old Elektra, where everyone else is the enemy, and she's all about Elektra, and she really softens, and she excuse me, I have a slight cold. She turns into this person who isn't afraid to show their softer side, and so I really love that about her. Um, at the towards the end of the ball, there is the candy sweet refrain, and the cash prize goes to Blanca for lip syncing to Whitney Houston's performance of the Star Spangled Banner, which actually happened in 1991. And that single was released to support families and soldiers um, who were families who were impacted by the Persian Gulf War. And it is the number one uh, selling single of the Star Spangled Banner. And it is still considered this day to be one of the best performances of the Star Spangled Banner. Um, and I am a huge Whitney Houston fan. Side note, I was so obsessed with Whitney Houston that I actually would buy every single magazine cover that she was on, and I would put it in a little scrapbook. I wish I had that scrapbook because um, it was a little stalkerish, but I loved that book. Um, and still to this day, I will play Whitney's albums to death because she, to me, is one of the top singers of all time. Um, and at the ball, um, there's one line that um, Elektra says is that we all should walk in others people's shoes because it will make the world a better place. And this ties into kind of like episode 1 versus uh episode 10, and it's how if we walk in someone else's shoes, and the shoes being like the high heels, that it will change the world. And that is very true. If we can empathize with someone, if we can try to understand what they go through, it can help us to see the world through their eyes. And when I was at my former job working in education, I would really try to see the world through the eyes of my students, and I would change the way that I would try to reach them. I had some students who they had these horror stories that they had parents who um, didn't care if they died. They had parents who treated them like they were strangers. And when I changed my approach, I was actually able to have a better relationship with them. And because that relationship, I could really tell them, you did this in class today. If you would have reacted differently, you would have had a different outcome in that situation. And so everyone um, really try to see the world through someone else's eyes. That change can be the change that has a positive impact on someone's life. Um, and you could really um, help alters someone's path in this life. So that's an important story that hopefully um, in households across the world that they get that from tonight's episode. And so at the end of the episode, Blanca adopts two children, and she has opened up the doors to the house of Evangelista again. And we end the episode with this beautiful quote: "Houses are homes to all the little boys and girls who never had one, and they keep coming every day just as sure as the sun rises." And it's a quote from Pray Tell, and Pray Tell said this episode 1, season 1 of Pose. And so we come to the end of this review. Please let me know what you thought of the season finale of Pose. I remember season 1 being a little upset that there wasn't anything dramatic that happened during the season's finale. And I'm in such a different place this season that there doesn't need to be this dramatic ending to the show. We can end the show hopeful, changed, and with so many questions about the future of the characters. Um, in the comment section, kind of like, what questions do you have about the characters that will keep us until season 3 premieres next year? I want to know if anything's going to happen between Blanca and the lifeguard, and if she's been communicating with him during these 8 months. I hope that he is her love interest for season 3. Um, I'm curious about the lives of the children of House of Evangelista. Um, what is going to happen with Damon and his dance career? Angel, what's going to happen with her modeling career? But leave your thoughts, your questions about the characters in the comment section below. Did you love this episode? Did you hate it? What do you want to see happen in season 3? And so I hope that you guys love the episode. I hope that you love this review. If this is your first time watching my channel, welcome. To all of my new subscribers, thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times for choosing to subscribe to my channel. I can't thank you enough. And I hope that we grow together. I'm going to be adding new videos soon. And so please keep coming back. You can share this on your social media. Tell your grandma, your auntie, your cousins all about me and tell them to subscribe. My goal is to get to 5,000 before the end of August. So help me to get there. Until we see each other again, be good to everyone and spread love in the world. And thank everyone for watching this live. I'm going to go back and respond to your comments. But have a beautiful night. Goodbye, guys. Mwah, mwah, mwah.